Embassy of China in South Africa holds a virtual media briefing to address the contentious matter of COVID-19 origins. As the pandemic continues to ravage different parts of the world, there has been growing calls and evident action of nations across the globe working together to counter the scourge. For more, let's take you there live.
For example, in November 2019, multiple skin biopsies from an Italian woman revealed the virus in situ hybridization reactivity. Genetic material of the virus has also been detected in wastewater samples collected from a city in Brazil. From December 13th, 2019 to January 17th, 2020, 9 states in the US reported a total of 106 archive samples of routine blood donations that tested positive for COVID antibodies. Second, China is open and transparent on origin tracing cooperation. We have nothing to hide. The Chinese side twice invited WHO in July last year and March this year, respectively, for origin tracing in China. And we fully supported WHO expert team's work. During the trips, the Chinese side made every effort to organize and coordinate among relevant departments to meet the requirement of WHO experts on their visits. A number of experts on the team say that they visited all the places they wanted to visit and met with everyone they wanted to meet. During the team's visit to China, the Chinese side presented all the key raw data in greater detail. These include patients' data from 174 earlier cases. The foreign experts also repeatedly made it clear that the team had access to a huge amount of data and information. They spoke highly of China's open, transparent, and responsible attitude. They say that China's openness was unexpected, and the result of the Wuhan visit exceeded expectations. The global COVID-19 origin tracing cooperation between WHO and China and its research practice provide a model for similar cooperation in other countries around the world. Third, the timeline of China's COVID-19 response proved that China has no reservations about sharing information with the world. According to international practice, it's customary for countries to have strict rules for the confirmation of infectious disease. China's law on the prevention and control of infectious disease has strict approval procedures and regulations for the reporting, verification, and release of infectious disease outbreaks. On December 27th, 2019, Dr. Zhang Jixian, director of the Department of Respiratory and Critical Care Medical at the Hubei Provincial Hospital of Integrative Medicine, was the first to report 3 cases of unknown pneumonia. This is the first time a suspicious case was reported by a local department in China. On the same day, the Wuhan CDC conducted epidemiological investigation and testing of relevant patients. On December 30th, the Wuhan Health Commission issued an urgent notice on reporting the treatment of the unknown pneumonia. On December 31st, the Wuhan Health Commission issued a briefing on the current pneumonia outbreak in the city. On the same day, China notified the WHO representative office in China of information and pneumonia cases of unknown origin in Wuhan. Since January 3rd of 2020, China started to timely and actively share the COVID information with WHO and countries, including the US. From January 3rd to February 3rd, China shared with the US information about the outbreak and China's response measures 30 times. China already completed the identification and genome sequencing of the virus on January 7th, 2020, and already shared genome sequencing of the virus with WHO and other countries on January 11th. On January 10th, the WIV and other institutions already developed COVID detection kits and started developing COVID vaccines and medicines. What I want to say as a reminder today is that from January 3rd, 2020, when China notified the US of COVID, to March 13th, when the US declared a national emergency, a simple process like this took 70 days. I guess all of us are very clear about what the US has done during the 70 days. Friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, some US politicians are obsessed with stigmatizing the virus by associating it with certain countries and places. This move do nothing but politicizing COVID origin tracing. Those politicians also attempt to pressure WHO into conducting a so-called phase 2 investigation into China. In the name of origin tracing that should have been based on science, the US attempts to plant evidence to incriminate China. Whatever the US side says or does on origin tracing has turned into nothing but a farce and a terrible scandal for the international community. First, the US engages in political manipulation with ill intentions. Does the US really care about origin tracing? From the very start till now, US government leadership cares nothing about where the virus originates. What they want from all of this is to use origin tracing to smear and attack China and to increase bargaining power with China. Their evil intention could not be more obvious. If the US really care about origin tracing, they should stop blaming others, focus on controlling the virus and saving life at home, and invite WHO to carry out investigation into the Fort Detrick base and the University of Northern Carolina. The US side is using origin tracing to practice hegemony. They gather allies to launch public opinion warfare and made a lot of noise about how there is a Wuhan lab leak and how China should pay for it. When the US paid back the fees it owed to WHO, they made it as if it's a way of forcing WHO on a second investigation into China. The US is attempting to appear that they set the rules in origin tracing. All this fully exposes how the US is not tracing origins of the virus, but manipulating the situation. What they have done disrespect science, exacerbates the spread of COVID as well as the political virus, which is more dangerous. Second, the US ignores science and fixates on the presumption of guilt. Does the US know that origin tracing takes a long time? Many US scientists have took part in tracing the origins of Spanish flu, Ebola, and AIDS. Some of these cases still have not been solved even today, after more than a decade or even decades of tough research. However, with the COVID-19 pandemic, the US government has put political calculations, bullying, and arrogance about science. They blatantly demand that the intelligence community produce a report in just 90 days. The fact that intelligence agencies and politicians, rather than experts, are making investigation is in itself anti-science. It fully demonstrates that the US side never intended to reach a scientific conclusion. They have already predetermined the outcome, just so they can pin the blame on China. In fact, the world knows all too well about the terrible track record of US intelligence community. For example, they once used a small tube of washing powder as so-called evidence of Iraqi weapons of mass destruction. They are behind the so-called white helmet to produce fake videos of so-called chemical weapons attack in Syria. During a speech at Texas A&M University in 2019, former US Secretary of State and CIA Director Mike Pompeo said, "We lied, we cheated, we stole, we have entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment." Again, the US intelligence community have a terrible history of poor informants. The so-called origin tracing report they fabricated is by no means credible. Third, the US keeps on shifting blames to others without any bottom line morality. Does the US really care about COVID-19 response? President Biden spoke in his statement about taking every necessary precautions to prevent it from happening again. Ironically, with the most advanced medical equipment and the strongest capability in the world, the US has seen 38 million confirmed COVID cases and nearly 630,000 American lives have been lost to the virus. US number of newly confirmed cases daily still ranks the highest in the world, with only 4% of the world population. The US accounts for a staggering 18% of global positive cases. The US president also said he would continue to work with like-minded partners. In reality, the US and its ally has often blamed and created trouble for each other in their COVID response. The US also used ridiculous tricks to intercept its allies' response supply and hoarded staggering amounts of vaccines. Smearing China will not clear the name for the US. In order to divert the world from blaming the US for its terrible response, the US has constantly put out bizarre arguments as holding China accountable. China needs to pay for it, and the lab leak in China. In essentials, they do all this only to cover up their own failure response. They plant evidence against China so as to serve their own selfish interests. Graham Allison, a well-known American scholar, said bluntly that during COVID, American politicians target China for nothing else but to avoid being held accountable for the failures in their own response. Fourth, the US willingly and knowingly choose to turn a blind eye to the call for justice. Has the US ever heard the universal call of the international community for science and justice? More than 80 countries have supported the joint WHO-China study and opposed politicizing this issue by writing to the WHO Director General, making statements or sending diplomatic notes. More than 300 political parties, social organizations, and think tanks from more than 100 countries and regions have submitted a joint statement to the WHO Secretariat. They support WHO in moving forward origin tracing study in a scientific, objective, and impartial manner. Professor Salim Karim, the leading South Africa epidemiologist and the former chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID, argued that the international community need to approach origin tracing in a scientifically rigorous way rather than political posturing and finger point. Several WHO sources and researchers disclosed that whenever they expressed support for the joint WHO-China study, they were pressured from the US side. President Peter Daszak of the Eco Health Alliance and Australian virologist Daniel Addison are no exception. As the world's largest developed country, the US should have worked hard for global health security cooperation. On the contrary, the US has wantonly undermined global cooperation against COVID-19, disrupt origin tracing and ignore calls from justice. They have not only cost the American people dearly, but also seriously damaged global cooperation against COVID and posed an unprecedented threat to global health security. Friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, China's position on origin tracing is consistent and clear. We approach it with an open, transparent, scientific, and cooperative attitude. First, origin tracing is about science. No country has a right to disregard life, politicize scientific issues, and smear other countries for political interest. Second, China has always supported and will continue to participate in science-based origin tracing. What we oppose is origin tracing that is politicized, that goes against WHO resolutions, and that disrespects the joint China-WHO study. Third, the China-WHO study must be respected and implemented by all parties, including WHO and its member states. Global origin tracing work should and can only be carried out on the basis of this study and not anything else. Friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, like all countries in the world, China is a victim of COVID-19. And we all hope to identify the source of this virus as soon as possible and stop its spread as early as possible. It's important for the international community to join hands to fight against not only COVID, but also the political virus. We need to jointly oppose the self-serving actions of the US through political manipulation, presumption of guilty, and blame shifting. We advise the US side there is no way out for political origin tracing, and that is essential for them to immediately return to the right path of science-based origin tracing and response cooperation. That is the expectation of the international community, and all in the interest of the American people, and also in the interest of the American people. Otherwise, they will only bring disgrace for themselves, dishonor themselves, and ended up harming their own interests and those of others. I thank you all.
Thank you, Ambassador. Just now, Ambassador Chen comprehensively elaborated China's position on the issue of origin tracing from a scientific point of view. The ambassador made it clear that China firmly opposes the collusion between US politicians and intelligence agencies to engage in anti-science reports, and calls on the US to abandon political manipulation, presumption of guilt, and shifting blame onto China, and return to the right track of science-based origin tracing and cooperating against pandemic. I believe this also represents the aspirations of all the people for justice in the world, including South Africa. And next, Ambassador Chen would like to answer your questions. Please raise your hand if you have a question, and please identify yourself before you ask the question. So now floor is open. Okay, I see Mr. Abbey from SABC raised your hand. Okay, so I invite Mr. Abbey to ask the question.
We're coming out of that briefing by the Chinese ambassador to South Africa, His Excellency Chen Xiaodong, giving China's position on related issues regarding the origins of the COVID-19 virus.